Hey everybody, this is Jonas with Tezos Community. Today we have a very exciting announcement. I'm following up on the major community announcement which you heard earlier today, where it was announced that Tezos community members have formed a Swiss association called the Association for the Tezos Protocol and Ecosystem. And those community members are in the process of concluding the formation of a Swiss foundation called the T2 Foundation. The purpose of these organizations are to assist in the launch of the Tezos blockchain, should the existing Tezos Foundation be unable to do so. This video you're about to watch is going to have two sections that we've recorded. The first, I'll be speaking with Ryan Jesperson, who has led the effort to form these organizations. And then in the second video, Ryan and I will be joined by Olaf Carlson-Wee, who is joining as one of the 7 board members of the T2 Foundation. So just to note that these videos were recorded previously. They were recorded the week of January 22nd. So without further ado, enjoy these videos and our announcement. And I will now be joined by Ryan.
Hey, Jonas, thank you so much. It's fantastic to be here today. Thank you. And yes, I've been a part of organizing not only the association, but also the T2 Foundation as well.
Great. So give us a little bit of a background about yourself in general and what your background in the Tezos community has been.
Sure, absolutely. So I am currently based in Utah in the United States. Most recently was an executive in a fintech company. Prior to that, I worked for about 2 years in the humanitarian space, primarily researching and experimenting and finding ways to better help the poor and the impoverished in developing countries. So I loved that work and that effort. Prior to that was an executive and turnaround specialist and also a tech entrepreneur in the healthcare industry. So I've got an undergraduate business degree from Brigham Young University and an MBA from Duke University, and also super passionate about Tezos. So kind of maybe a little bit of background of my involvement with Tezos is that was just a normal contributor, during the donation period, and no special ties beyond that to the project at all. I'm just very passionate about the technology and really believed heavily and believe heavily, right, in the vision that Arthur outlined in the white paper. And so I was a normal contributor in the crowd sale, but became, I think, as many of you, more and more concerned as time went on. And we learned about the difficulties and the mismanagement of the Tezos Foundation, and really the inability to deploy any sort of meaningful resources to the development of the project. So started to get more and more concerned about that, and I think especially concerned that the voice of the community was not being heard in everything. That there were different accusations going around in the news media, things being leaked in the media. Furthermore, all communication from the foundation towards us was cut off. So it became very concerning that we just didn't have a voice that people were listening to. So I helped to organize that petition that went around, that's been signed, I think, by about 1,700 people now in over 95 countries, just to help people see that the community had a voice, and that we were very concerned about the situation that was happening. That was followed up by 2 subsequent statements, and then also a press release. And as that was happening, I realized I've got some corporate executive experience in my background, that it was important, yes, for the board to hear the voice of the community. As well, it was important, hopefully, for the media to hear that voice and start reporting the other side to the story. But as well, realized that under Swiss law, the organization or the entity that really has the authority to do something about this is the Swiss Foundation Authority. And so I, on my own, just hired a very competent Swiss counsel, and have been paying for it out of my personal savings. But did that in an effort to have that counsel represent the voice of the community as it's expressed in the petition and also in the statements and the press release, to represent it to the foundation authority in a way that it would have more weight, right? So they're not going to listen to a group of disparate people talking on Reddit or Riot on the internet, or maybe even sign a petition on the internet. But if those same people can be represented by competent Swiss counsel, and it's presented to them in a formal way, then it has a lot more weight. So I've been, personally, funding that and helping with it, and I think it's been helpful, to have an impact. And then we started to consider as a community, as different members of the community, that if the Tezos Foundation is not going to if it's not going to act and deploy resources, maybe there's something we could do as a community to be able to, receive donations and then maybe help to fund development or the different apps or the different things that are needed to help Tezos move forward, because the foundation is in a state of paralysis. So we started to kind of throw some ideas around about that, but then realized that the situation at the foundation only seems to be getting worse and that things aren't improving. And so then realized, hey, really the most important thing that we can do at this point is provide a place, a safe place for the Tezos Foundation to launch if needed. So to that end, started to throw around some ideas, got some opinions, some legal opinions on the best way to potentially form an alternate Swiss foundation that would be able to launch the network if the current foundation is unable to do so. And as I started to kind of kick around those ideas and think about it, the highest priority was how can we prevent the same situation at the Tezos Foundation from occurring again, as well as ensure that the community's voice is always going to be heard moving forward. And that instead of an alienation between the two entities, that there's a communication and a collaboration between those entities that would be a really healthy thing moving forward. So that's kind of the genesis of this whole thing, and how the association and the and the foundation.
Great. So can you give us a little more detail on what exactly is being created between an association and the foundation? I think this association thing is probably something new to most folks following along.
Yeah, absolutely. So under Swiss law, the foundation authority and Swiss law in general gives some sort of deference to the founder of a foundation. And so if you have that founder be a specific individual, there are the potentials for that specific individual to cause problems in the foundation if they choose to do something different than maybe the other board members, or than really what the foundation was created or intended for. So the idea was that but we can create an association as a community. Association in Switzerland is a legal body and entity. So an association could be created that's formed of community members, and over time we're going to be growing and growing those ranks. So the association includes a vast amount of community members from all over the world. And the key is that association, it has been formed now, and that association is the founder of this new foundation. So in essence, the T2 Foundation will have as its founder this entity that is an entity based of community members, and the community members can always retain that role of being kind of that moral voice for the foundation. Another neat thing we're able to do is stipulate that 2 of the foundation board members would always need to come from the ranks of the association. So not only guaranteeing that will the foundation defer or speak with its founder of the association and have a good relationship, but actually some of the board members would actually have to come from the association.
Cool. So that sounds like a very practical and pragmatic strategy for launching the T2 Foundation. How do you think this will help in the overall launch of the Tezos network?
Yeah, great question. So, that's the T2 Foundation is in its final stages of formation. Basically, the principles of the T2 Foundation are diversity, We value highly diversity. So from the top to the bottom of the organization, we want people that are diverse and from all over the world. And we really value and place a premium on technologists, on developers, on researchers, on specialists, in this in technology in general and in the blockchain space. So so we've been able to form a very competent board for the foundation that is kind of based around those principles. And how I see it playing out is, it's important that the T2 Foundation, it's not adversarial in nature to the Tezos Foundation. We hope that the Tezos Foundation is able to get its act together and to be a place where it can launch the network. But ultimately, what we want to provide is if the Tezos Foundation is not able to adequately and launch the network in a timely manner, we want to provide a location and an entity for the Tezos network to launch, and not only just any entity for it to launch, but one that is tied closely to the community and that has such a strong board that people would have confidence that the future of the foundation is going to be very, very bright.
Awesome. So are there any particular next steps that are going to happen with the T2 Foundation?
Yeah, great question. So like I mentioned, the association is finalized. The T2 Foundation is in the final stages of being finalized. The board members have all accepted to serve on that foundation. So I think kind of from here where we go is that we'll just be in contact with everybody in the community, and we'll be monitoring closely the activity of the developers and their preparations for launch, as well as hopefully the progress that's made at the Tezos Foundation. And based on how those progress or don't progress over time, then we'll help out if needed.
Great. So you're a longtime member of the community, and you've really put a lot of effort into this over the last several months since the fundraiser to help us get things in order. But yes, you have a relatively unknown voice in the community from a conversation perspective. So how do you think other community members should be able to get in touch with you?
Fantastic. Thanks for asking. So so on Riot, I'm R. Jesby, so you're welcome to talk to me and communicate with me there. I will publish shortly I'll publish shortly an email address that can be used, a T2 Foundation email address that can be used, so that you can get a hold of me, and would love to hear from you.
Great. All right. So we're going to take a short break right now as we get prepared to bring Olaf Carlson-Wee onto this chat so we can learn his perspective on things. But when we come back in just a few minutes, we'll speak with him. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm really excited that we're now joined by Olaf Carlson-Wee, who, along with Ryan, are taking two of the first board seats on the new T2 Foundation. So welcome, Olaf. I'm going to throw it over to Ryan here and let him interview you with a few questions, and then we'll wrap this up. Thanks.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Jonas. So first, Olaf, just wanted to thank you for agreeing to serve on the board of the T2 Foundation, and wanted to ask you, would like to just pick your brain and know your thoughts on the potential that you think that Tezos has going forward.
Yeah, so I've been very excited about the Tezos protocol for a very long time. So I first read about Tezos when the white paper was released. Back in 2014. I discovered it, I think, a bit later, maybe 2015. And at that time, I thought the idea of on-chain governance was really a massive breakthrough, because you have the holders of the Tezos tokens, which in my mind are really kind of the most important people in the ecosystem, right? Outside of the validators, like in Bitcoin, this would be the miners, or the core developer team. I really do think it is the community and holders that really determine what the leading chain is. So, like, for example, if there's a fork, it's really the investors that determine which fork wins, because the miners and validators will just follow the chain that's the most valuable. So to me, putting more power in the hands of the actual token holders through an on-chain governance system makes a lot of sense intuitively. And I think it's an experiment we've never really seen play out in the way Tezos has kind of formalized it. Combining that on-chain governance mechanism with a smart contract language that's a functional programming language, in this case Michelson, which is written in OCaml, also is very interesting to me. As we've seen with Ethereum and other smart contract platforms, there have been historically large security problems. Lots of hacked contracts, lots of just general problems with kind of using smart contracts. Even basic multi-sig contracts have proven to be relatively unsecure in Ethereum. Now, I'm very excited about smart contracts broadly, but I do think an alternative language that's perhaps a bit more secure is very, very interesting. It was in 2016 that I met Kathleen and Arthur in person, and at that time became the first backer of the Tezos project financially. So I made a pre-contribution, I believe this was in about September of 2016. And at that time, they'd already made great progress on the code base and had a really wonderful vision for how to move the project forward. So then once they started the public crowd sale, they'd made, again, significant progress since September of 2016. I also contributed in the public crowd sale and have been, pretty involved with the project throughout that whole time. So, just throughout late 2016, 17. So I think that Tezos to me is exciting core kind of protocol launch since Ethereum. And, I really do think that this on-chain governance mechanism combined with programming language for smart contracts and over time, formal verification of smart contracts is really promising. And it's just something that, to me, having, followed this technology since 2011, I'm really, really excited to see this live. And I think amidst about the foundation and governance of the kind of off-chain development, people have maybe lost track a little bit that this is a new blockchain written from the ground up. It is not a fork of Ethereum. It's not a fork of another. And it has, so much potential. First instance of real on-chain governance we've ever seen.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much for that overview. I really appreciate it, and I agree with the, with the sentiment that we're just seeing tremendous progress with the technology. Recently I'm very active in looking at the GitLab activity, the progress of the dev, and it's amazing how they've continued to just keep their head down and keep progress going, and despite all that's happening. So I as well am very optimistic, and we're excited as a community. Is there anything else, before we wrap up that you'd like to say? Any shout outs to the community?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, shout out to the supporters who, I know it's been kind of a rough late 2017, just as far as confusion around where is all the crowd sale money, who has access to that, how is that being deployed. And while I do think that the, off-chain governance system at the original Tezos Foundation is clearly broken, I think it's perhaps somewhat ironic, but it's maybe fitting that Tezos is building an on-chain governance mechanism, right? And that the whole point of Tezos is to fix these kind of offline issues by formalizing governance and putting it onto the blockchain. So you no longer have this issue of offline legal entities or offline individuals who control kind of how developers get paid. We can actually put bounties on pull requests as a community and reward developers directly within the protocol. So I'm very excited in Tezos to see the first $10 million pull requests get merged. Yeah,
absolutely. And it just kind of reinforces the whole project, right? That the on-chain governance is something that's important, that's needed, and that is an exciting future in Tezos.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think over time, we'll likely see crowd sales instead of creating legal entities like nonprofit foundations. We'll likely create smart contract-based DAOs. We'll have just many more experimentations here in governance, which I think is a critical layer. I think we've seen issues in both Bitcoin and Ethereum at the governance layer. Sure. And I really think Tezos is perhaps primed to be the first protocol to truly address those.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree. And we're incredibly excited about the future of Tezos. And this is the beginning of an incredible journey. So, thank you so much, Olaf, for joining us. We really appreciate it. We're going to hand it back over to Jonas to wrap us up here.
Okay. Thanks for having me, guys.
Great. Thank you very much, Olaf. Appreciate you joining us here today. Ryan, thanks for all the work you're doing for the community. So on behalf of the community, we're really excited about what's going to happen here in 2018, and we look forward to some amazing opportunities and future discussions with everyone. So thanks for everybody, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Excellent. Thank you, Jonas. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.